Hey friends, welcome back. Now we are going to continue our Next.js series. In this series, we are creating this news website, right? It has different pages, it includes authentication and everything. So in this video, we are going to understand data fetching strategy in Next.js. And I will say this video is very important than the previous videos, right? If you understand data fetching strategy in Next.js, then you understand Next.js. If you don't understand data fetching strategy in Next.js, then you don't understand Next.js, right? And it is going to be very helpful in build, in deployment, and every place, right? That's why I'm saying data fetching is very important. You watch this video till the end, then only you will understand this data fetching strategy. Otherwise, if you don't understand properly data fetching strategy and you create some projects and you host that project, then like after a couple of days you will be having trouble. You will be in trouble, right? Your production server will be bombarded with lots of HTML files. So you have to understand this data fetching strategy, right? So here we are, and let's see the data fetching strategy. Yeah, data fetching. So here we have data fetching. There are different techniques and built-in methods available in Next.js. So there are three methods required for the data fetching. And the last one is get server-side props. This is not tricky. This is kind of like easy. Anyone can understand easily. And this is useful in case of like if you want a page to be rendered on each request, right? And you need to be, a user needs to be authenticated on that page, right? No one else can access that page. Only authenticated user can access. Then this get server side props is very useful on each request. But what we are going to understand in this video is get static props and get static paths. This is very important. And how this works, what is the static generation, what is the build time, what is the meaning of build time, like fetch data at build time, what it means. I will show you everything. I will show you like files, where it generated, where it lives, and everything. So dynamic routes and pre-render and everything, right? So for that, let's start with get static props, right? So what it means, get static props. So if you use get static props, it means it creates a HTML page at the build time. Now let's understand this get static props. So if you use get static props for data fetching, so what happens when you build your project, it creates an HTML file with that data, and that is going to be live forever, and that page will be served always, right? So let me show you how it works. Come over here, and here is our post and post ID, right? Index.js file. So here I will say this is our post. Let's imagine this, here I'm gonna write up. I'm going to get a post list, and this is like something which is not required. Save, and I'm gonna say export const and get static props, right? And here we're gonna say return. So the thing is, what you have to do, you have to return a props from here, and that props will be accessible inside your page component, right? So here I'm gonna say props, and here I'm gonna say name, that is going to be Rizwan Khan, right? So this is what I'm going to return from getStaticProps. Save this, and in this props, I'm gonna use that name. So I will have access to this name property, and here instead of post, I will say, yeah, let the post stay there. And here I will say another h2 tag and author, or we'll say by, here we'll say name, right? Save this, and now let's go and check this thing. Here we are, and let's remove this. So you see, by Rizwan Khan, right? And now if I go and inspect this page, inspect, and go to the network tab, and let's reload this page. Okay, so this is statically generated page because we are using get static props in this page, right? You go to the paste, you can see by Rizwan Khan, right? So this is because of static rendering. This page is statically generated, right? Now let me show you where it generates and where it lives, right? So here we go, and let's kill this server, and we'll build this project, npm run and build, hit enter. So I've got some error, and The error is stroke line cap, line join. Okay, these are the, looks like a warning. And yeah, so here need to disable some ESLint rules. So actually when we build our project, every page go through linting, and it generates some error based on the formatting, syntax, and right rules of using code, right? So for the moment I want to disable the rules. So let's visit this website, copy, and let's visit this one, and here it is, disabling rules. And let's go, and here we are, stance, how to disable. Okay, rules, yeah. So this is the rules. Let's copy this, and you need to paste this stuff inside the inside the config, next config.js file over here. And these are the directory that needs to go through linting process, but let's skip for the moment. And here we'll give an empty array. Okay, so no linting required for our project. We'll say npm run build, and now let it build. So the build process is completed, and you can see some symbols and notation. That's very important to understand. So here is a circle, here is a lambda, and here is dot, right? And these are the paths for our application. So this is the home directory path, this is the underscore app path, this is a 404 path. So you may see, like, if you visit some random routes, then you're gonna see a 404 page. Then this is a API, that is API slash hello. We haven't discussed anything about API. That's kind of like related to the server side. And then another path like slash login post. This is a post ID. So here if you see things like circle means static and automatically rendered as HTML, right? So this is going to render as an HTML file. This file is created in the server. And ssg dot, you can see this post, ssg automatically generated HTML plus JSON. So here we are using, if you see this post, we have used something over here. You go and check this post. So we have used this getStaticProps here, and that's the reason this file become ssg, statically generated HTML plus JSON. So once what happens here, once a request goes to the server, then a static HTML file renders, and then client takes control, and then when you navigate, when you do the client side navigation, then JSON file loads the data, right? So let me show you something interesting over here. So this next folder got created, and within this folder we have this server directory, and within this server directory we have this pages directory, and within this pages directory we have all the HTML file. This is what I'm talking. So here we have 404.html file. Here we have our post.html file, right? So post.html file, if you go and check your post index.js, so here we have post, here we have by, right? And if I go, and here we have name, and that name is Rizwan Khan. So this has generated a HTML file for us, post.html. And here you can search like Rizwan Khan, right? So you can see the Rizwan Khan is available over here, right? Interesting, right? So this is what the meaning of build time generation. When you create a build, then all of your HTML files will be created if you are using getStaticProps, right? That is just one feature, covered 10% of the whole concept, okay? And you can go and wrap this thing like terminal and view word wrap, and this is how this file looks. So this is our post.html file. This is what we can see. We have to, once the build generated, we can use npm start to run the application instead of npm run dev. And here you go and check this post, and it's fast enough, right? This is the post file as one kind. This is the post.html file. This file, if you go and load this file directly, like Reveal in Finder, not using server, just loading this, and you can see everything is coming as it is, right? Of course there are no like few things are missing from the styling, but without running server we can see this page. So this is what called statically generated pages, right? And we need to take care of it very carefully. If you use getStaticProps, and there are some dynamic data. Then for every request, like it is gonna generate update the HTML file. That is fine, but there are few points we need to understand, and I will be discussing that. Do not worry. So let's close this and come over here. And here are all of our HTML file, right? Post HTML file. So this is let's see the next part of it, that you get started props. So I'm just gonna close this and instead using npm run dev, because I want to show you more important things. That was just one. So here we are, and next server pages and everything gone, right? Because now we are again using the dev environment. Let's close this. So here we are, and what I'm doing, I'm expecting like I want to do a fetch request, right? So let's use some placeholder API. And here is our JSON placeholder, and let's use like post. Okay. And let's say I want to use 5. So this is the post, and ID of this post is 5, right? So I want to use this one, copy. And here I'll say const, and I will say uh, post equals to wait, fetch, paste. Okay, and this is going to be an asynchronous function, sync, and const JSON post equals to wait post dot JSON. Okay, now we're going to return this JSON post. So we'll say post, and here we're going to say JSON post. If you get the response successfully, JSON post. Otherwise, we are going to give it null. So your page will not break and it will work fine. Okay, so we have JSON post, otherwise we are going to have null. And here instead of name, I will say post, and I will simply say post dot title, and title and body are there. Post dot body, save, and let's go next application. Reload this, and here we got. Okay, so this is again using getStaticProps. You go and check this post. Sorry, go and click on this. You can see the stuffs over here, because this is available in your HTML, right? No JavaScript involved in this. Even if you go and see view page source in normal React application, you're not gonna see the stuffs like the title and the content, right? You can see over here the paragraph and everything is coming. In general React, this does not happen. This doesn't happen because everything is client-side rendered in general React application. Okay, so here we are with this data, right? So this is fine. Till now, this is fine. You have something, you are getting one data, one specific post, and you are rendering that. What if I want things to be rendered, or what if I want things to be rendered based on the ID? Let's say if I enter some ID, hit enter, then it will show something, right? Right now, it is going to give us 404, right? So yeah, the post detail pages are there, right? So in that page, I want to use this. Okay, so here we go, post ID, and here is our post details. And I want to use that get static props. So let's go and just copy this thing and paste over here. Okay, we are exporting this get static props, and we will get, here will say name, sorry, post, and as it is like post dot title, and then paragraph, post dot body, save. And okay, post dot write cannot read properties of undefined reading title. Why? Get static props. Props, and then props we have test. So post and then ID. Okay, get static path is required, right? So here is the problem. It works fine with non-dynamic paths, right? So here we have our index.js file. We have the same stuff, and here we have post details and the same content, right? We have just copied everything from here to here. But the difference is this is a dynamic path and this is the static path, right? If we go and check here, works fine, right? Now, if I use a dynamic path like post and place some and hit enter, then you're gonna see some error. So get static paths is required for dynamic SSG. For dynamic static generation, you need this get static paths, and that is also mentioned over here, get static paths. So for dynamic path, it is not gonna work. You have to use this get static paths. So how to use that? Let's go and again export something. So get static path. Let's say export const get static paths, and here it is. I'm gonna say return, and we can return a path like that. The path is going to be an array because we may have multiple parameters, right? Here we can type anything. So we can type 1, we can type 2, 4, 3, 4, 5, anything is possible, right? So this is that's why this is always an array. And then within this array, we're going to have an object with params property. And within the params, we're going to have an ID. And this is going to have a string, always a string. And I will specify like 5 because here it is 5, right? So 5. Now I will have this params over here, okay? So I'll simply say params and I will replace this with params, say params dot id. But yeah, replace this single quotes with backticks. Okay, so this looks fine. Save this, and yeah, it's cool. So we are passing this ID, and here we are getting this ID, and then we'll get that post. Let's go and check this thing. So this is an invalid. Like get strike path is required for dynamic SSG. Let's give 5. Get static paths is required. I think spelling is incorrect. Get static path is required. Where we have, okay, sorry, it's wrong place. Let's copy this, cut from here, and this 5, and it is not required. Save. Sorry, my mistake. Paste over here, and here we expect params. Destructure that, and then replace this 5 dollar params dot id. So this id is nothing but 5, and here this is going to be like single quote. Sorry, backticks. Save this. Now let's try this stuff. And it's reloading, and extra keys return from getStaticPaths. There is something wrong. Extra keys return from getStaticPaths. So extra keys return means this is not a valid key. It's paths, not path. Save, and now let's reload. So it's reloaded, and the fallback key must be returned from getStaticPaths. If you're using dynamic SSG, dynamic routing, then we have to return a fallback from the static path. We have to specify, we have to clear to the next.js like what is the expectation. I will say fallback false. So if this particular parameter match, then only get the data. Otherwise, say 404, something wrong happened. Okay, let's go, and required parameter post ID was not provided as a string. So here it is, post ID, and let's copy this, and here it is, post ID. Okay, now let's reload, and finally we got this our post ID with the getStaticProps, and we are using getStaticPaths. If you go to the 5, and you see the contents is available over here. If you view the source code, then you can see this HTML. So every time you reload this, you are gonna see this stuff, and this is going to be very fast on the server. Okay, so this is statically generated dynamic. So this is dynamically generated static file. Now if I say something else, let's say 10. So if I try something else, let's say 10, so it's gonna give you 404 because that ID doesn't exist. So we go and so if we try something else, then it's gonna give us 404 because that doesn't exist because we have hard-coded params fine. Now, what if I say instead of let's copy the let's repeat this stuff and paste over here, and here we'll say 10. Try 10. This works fine because we have code for 10. Now, if you try something else, let's say 101, and then you're gonna get 404 because it is not working. So why it is like that? So why it is like this? Why we have this get static paths? So the purpose of this get static path is in some applications, for example, e-commerce or any type of application where we have categories or catalogs or menus, right? Those things barely change in the application, right? Once categories and catalogs created, then no one is going to change. Maybe like it, or maybe it changes in a month, or maybe 15 days, or maybe 6 months, right? So that doesn't change very often. So for such kind of pages, you can create a static page. You can create the static HTML files. That's the reason this get static paths here. So you can simply specify the ID of those things which you want to render statically, right over here, and then Next.js will generate static HTML files for those IDs only, right? So you have seen some HTML file within this next folder. This is how it works. But what if user will place something like some other ID? Then what will happen? So in that case, obviously you will get 404. How we can handle that? So in place of fallback false, we can say fallback true, and we can fetch that data too. So here, if you go and say 101, hit enter, and it says cannot read property title of undefined. So when you say fallback true, then it gives you something like is fallback. You go and next router. So here the router gives you is fallback if your fallback is true within getStaticProp. And what is the meaning of it? If the page is not yet generated, let's say you are trying some random ID and for that ID page is not generated, then is fallback will show you some loading like is fallback will be true. And once the getStaticProps completed, then only you will see the content. Okay, so here it is. Like if I go and post details and I already have the router, I'll simply say if router dot is fallback. If fallback true, then return h1 loading. So it will return the loading. Save. Now it is going to work for the dynamic IDs also. The IDs which is not defined. Now it is going to work for IDs which is not defined over here, right? So for 5 and 10, it will serve a static page, and for other IDs, it is going to serve dynamic data. Okay. So let's try over here. There is nothing like that. Let's try 1, and here you see loading, and you got the content of 1. The post ID is 1. If you go and pick this file, and here you see the loading because this happened the client side. This doesn't happen in the server side, right? If you go for the 5, then this happened on the server side because this is predefined within the getStaticProps. But if you try something else, like say 45, no, that doesn't exist. 45 and loading. So this is happening in the client side because it's fallback true. And if you go for 45, you see loading true. But if you try 10, because that is predefined and that is already statically generated, so you can see over here, this content available over here. But in other cases, you're going to see the loading content, right? So this is how it works. There is another property you need to understand that's a very important. Even for the dynamic IDs like this 10 and 11, 12, 13, 14, for every dynamic ID you can create the static page if you want, if it is your requirement. Now the another important concept we need to understand in this getStaticProps is let me show you. Revalidate. Okay, so incremental static regeneration, it is called incremental static regeneration. Here basically you can specify some period of time, and in that time it will recreate the HTML page based on the changes, right? So this is kind of like very interesting feature available, revalidation. So for right now it is only working for the 5 and 10. It is creating the dynamic pages, right? So any ID which is not defined over here, if we use revalidation, then it will create a static page for that dynamic ID also, but in a particular interval of time. So here what you have to do, it is static props, and here in within the props, let's say revalidate. Let's say 5 seconds in every, or let's say 3 seconds. In every 3 seconds, it will revalidate this stuff. Okay, and here you go, 10. Let's try something like which is not in defined. 3 is not defined. Hit enter and loading. But next time, 3 seconds completed, right? Now, if next time if you visit this 3 again, then you're not going to see loading stuff. You're gonna see directly the content. But you have just seen the loading. It's because of this is running on the dev server, and in dev server revalidation doesn't work well. So I will show you in the build environment. Okay, so let's kill this and create a build npm run build. Sorry, npm run build. Okay, now you can see we have two different things, dots, post and post ID, ISR 3 seconds. So in every 3 seconds, it is going to generate the page, incremental static generation. Here it is written incremental static generation, users revalidate. So in every 3 seconds, it is going to recreate your page with the new and dynamic content, right? So let's start our build and then start. Now it is running on running with our build. And if you go to this file next, and here you're gonna see server and then pages, and then here you're gonna see something like post, right? Within this post we have 10.html. So this is our dynamic statically generated page, and you can see the content of this page also, like a dollar is whatever Chinese or maybe French something is written. And here 5.html, for 5.html is also there, right? Now if you visit 5 and 10, let's say 5, uh, this is fine, right? Let's visit 10. Okay, this is also fine because this is picking things from here, 5 and 10 working fine. Now what if I try something else? Let's say 15. 15 is not here in this post, right? Now let's try 15, and you're gonna see 15 generated in the real time in the production, right? 15, hit enter, loading, first time loading, created. Now if you go and check the file, over here you see the 15.html. Yay, it's working. Amazing, right? So this is what I was trying to make you understand, right? Now if you try something else like say 20, now it has created a file for us, 20.html, right? You go and see the word wrap, things are available, right? So this is the content, paragraph tag, h1 tag, this is a paragraph tag, right? The content is created. Now if I revisit, then it will statically serve, no loading will happen. Fine, right? If I try to get 5, getting right 5, no loading, nothing. Now if I try something else, let's say 25, now here loading will happen. Now it's completed. Now if I visit again, now it will serve statically. So this is how static incremental work, right? ISR work, incremental static generation. This is kind of very important. So when you are building your application, choose wisely what technique you want to use. Uh, is really incremental static required for your scenario? If not required, then don't use. What is going to happen? Every time when you visit something dynamic, it creates an HTML file. And of course, your performance will be faster, page will be served faster, but it also increase the size, right? And not just it takes a lot of place in the server, it build time will also takes time if you are going to have a lot of dynamic routes in your application, but that is fine. But if it happens like 2 days, 3 days, or like in an hour or 5 hours, 6 hours, in that case you can go with incremental static generation. So incremental static generation is for the things like important, you want that thing to be solved fast, right? But for dynamic things like for every millisecond data gets changed, let's say some socket listener are there, or let's say some user profile, right? User profile is something like I want to see my profile, some other user see or wants to see their profile, not mine, right? So their server-side rendering is required. getStaticProp is not going to help you, right? Because for every user, I don't want to create an HTML file, right? Just imagine, let's say I'm using getStaticProps for the profile page over here. Uh, Here's a profile page. Just imagine I'm using getStaticProps with this with increment ISR and incremental static generation. I'm using here, right? So for every user, when a user going to log in and logged in and visit the profile page, it is going to create a file. it is going to create an HTML file with that username. Let's say rizwan.html, faizan.html, arjun.html, akshay.html. So like that. So choose wisely. What is the requirement? Understand your requirement. And the next thing is get server side props. You need to, here it is, get server side props. This is kind of something like same like get static props, but it creates a page on the server side, and very useful in case of dynamic rendering or profiles or the pages change, the data changes very quickly, right? You cannot rely on a static generation, right? So in that cases you can use this. So guys, I have given a lot of effort to understand by myself, right? And then I'm providing you all the knowledge, and hopefully you are gonna like this video, and don't forget to share this video.